Well, there it is.
Hurricane, how are you? I can't hear you.
You
Oh,
can't
there we
see
go.
me?
I can see you and I can hear you now. So everything's all good.
All right, all right. Well, you're in Tasmania, I'm assuming?
I'm in Tasmania at the moment. That's right.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. All right, well, listen, I mean, I see you a lot of, again, I know I'm missing the nice little drop that you have, but we'll take it next time. Yeah,
Yeah. See.
listen, you're doing a good job. That's it. That's all that matters.
Oh, thank you, Hurricane. So are you, mate. And really, listeners out there don't know how good they've got it with the two of us, Hurricane. We're doing pretty well.
Listen, we do our best, right?
Yeah, we
We're
do.
doing. We're not trying. We're doing. That's all that matters.
We're doing.
Some
That's
people just
exactly
try.
right. No, well put. Well put.
Yeah,
How's your month been?
so far it's good. I mean, busy, crazy. It's January, a lot of things, build in, and yeah, I mean, it's an interesting year, I have to say.
Yes, yes, it is. It is.
It, well,
Good word for it.
every day is an interesting day. Every year is an interesting year, and it comes with the good, the bad, the ugly, and we take it, right?
Yep, yep, we do.
So, can you hear me well? Can you see me well? Are we
I
good?
can
Are we
hear you
fuzzy?
well. I can see you well. Everything's fine.
All right, all
Everything
right.
okay from your?
Say that again one more time, doctor.
Is everything okay from your end? Can you hear me okay?
No, I hear you. I mean, you froze a bit, but for a second there, but you're back.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for
Well, I
letting
mean,
me know.
listen, we're over the internet, we're live, so this happens, and we'll deal with it,
Well,
right?
that's true. That's true.
Overall, right now we're streaming on YouTube and on Instagram. So for those people that want to watch, so let me do the honors, and we'll go from there. How about that? I'll do the
Okay.
startup. Now, this is the
Sounds
pre-show,
good.
folks. This is just
So we were
the
streaming.
yeah, we're just doing the backstage stuff, folks. So I know we're live, but people are just get introduced to us, and then we'll do the whole thing, for them. So this is like the pre and post.
Okay.
Here
Okay.
we
But I got to
go.
know because you never know what
Huh?
I'll say. You never know what I'll say.
Well, you
Go
are
ahead.
prepared. That's all matters. well, well, actually, you know what? We are in the show, so it doesn't matter. I mean, we're really there. I just want to tell everybody, hello, everyone. Welcome to Climb to Your Prime with Dr. Heim. This is time for mental health. This is our monthly. Time with the one and only Dr. Christian Heim, all the way from this time Tasmania, not Australia, which is part of Australia on the south of it. And Doctor can give us a little bit of the the geography there, but yeah. So this is live, and y'all watching on YouTube, on Instagram, and it will be all over the place. Beyond today, and again, this is your time to ask questions. You can join us. You can call us. The number is on the screen. You can also, if you want to be on the show, there is a link to the stream. You can paste it, and then you can come on, and we can bring you up, and you can have a discussion live, and or just entertain directly with the doctor, ask the questions. That's all there is for now. So, doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Hurricane. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing terrific. We do it again. It's all good. It's all good. Well, I'm enjoying, this first month of the year, regardless of everything. I mean, I've had great shows already and a lot of guests and a lot of insights. I've learned a bit as always. And that's all we're doing, one thing at a time, one little step, one little event, one little show, one little information that we share with the world. Hopefully we make a difference. And that's really it. And you and I, we closed the year literally the night, the New Year's Eve. I mean, that was almost New Year's Eve for you guys.
That's
So,
right.
and it was positive. We had a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of questions that some of them from the last, I guess season, because this is actually our fourth season now, and and we haven't
Wow.
gotten to those questions, but we'll go through them today, or at least some of them. I don't know if I can go through all of them today with you, Doc, but certainly whatever we can, we'll cover up next time. So again, folks, if you're watching on Instagram, on YouTube, please join and the discussion. You can dial in, or you can literally just come up and join us on screen. Don't be shy. All right. So, Doctor, are we ready?
We're ready. We're ready, Hurricane.
So as always, I try to put these. Now, I believe none of these questions were asked the last time because I try to look and I didn't see them. So these are, fresh. So let's do that. I'm going to put the new one in. Some of these are pretty heavy, I guess, but they're part of what we're going through in this world. So I think
Okay.
we get prepared, Doc.
Yeah.
Here we go. So, what is it that some people get a high from vandalism and destruction of property? What drives them to do this, knowing that it is illegal, destructive, and potentially dangerous, Matt? All right.
Okay, Matt, that's a wonderful question. That's really difficult. Okay, so when I hear a question like this, Hurricane, the first thing that I encourage people to do is find that space in themselves where they get some sort of a morbid pleasure out of doing what we believe is wrong, okay? And unfortunately, human nature is such that we can get a pleasure out of being angry, a pleasure out of being morbid, a pleasure from dwelling in a pity party, and as Matt has pointed out, a pleasure from vandalism and destruction. And so this harks back to the whole idea of is a person good or bad? And this is an unanswered question, but I believe with Solzhenitsyn that the line between good and evil is drawn in the heart of all of us. So in other words, we have choices that we can make. And the science actually shows that we have free will, that we have choices. Now, I'm not talking about that ultimate free will, that means that we all transcend this materialism, but on a day-to-day basis, we make choices. Now, when it comes to vandalism and destruction, Matt, somewhere along the line, somebody makes a choice to say, this is what I'm going to do. So the question is what drives people to do that and why they get pleasure out of all of it. Now, Matt, I've got to say behind your question is one wonderful assumption that I want to bring out. And it's the assumption that you make it's the right thing to do the right thing. And this is actually a very subtle assumption, Hurricane, because all of science still wants to do what it can for us to live in peace and harmony in the world. So in other words, let's take it back to World War II and the Manhattan Project when we were discovering the atomic bomb. A group of scientists actually got together and said, we have to make sure that this information ends up on the side of good rather than the side of evil. Now, science is supposed to be free of those judgments, but it actually isn't, because we know that it's better to be healthy than sick. We know that it's better to be alive than dead. We know it's better to survive than not to survive. So going back to your question, Matt, what is it about vandalism and destruction that gives people pleasure? So firstly, it gives them a strong sense of self and protest. And it was interesting, Hurricane, because last month we were answering a question about parenting. Somebody asked about a child that, wouldn't do what people said, okay? And
No.
That's right. And so part of the human brain is to say, I'm not like you, Dad, or I'm not like you, Mum. I'm going to do this. And so there's a bit of defiance there. And this is actually healthy because it helps us develop who we are as ourselves. But in a sense, society is also a parent to all of us. And sometimes we have to protest against that. And sometimes we have to toe the line and be part of it. So sometimes vandalism and destruction is people finding their sense of self to the cost of all others. But sometimes protests need to be made to move society in the right direction, which is why free societies actually enshrine the right to protest in their constitution, so that people can say, this is how I feel. When it gets to vandalism and destruction, most of us sort of say, hey, this is not the way to go, because it is starting to cost and it's doing more harm than good. So unfortunately, we do get delight in evil things. And it would be good if we got more delight in doing constructive things. And the science shows that we have a choice between doing what's good and what is evil. And the aim is actually for all of us to get more of a high from doing constructive things rather than destructive things. Now, that's just an introduction to a large topic, Hurricane. And I don't know if Matt will be satisfied with that, but what do you reckon?
Well, no, so there's a couple. Well, one thing. I mean, this is just my thing. I mean, I hear you, doctor, and you obviously the expert, and you're breaking it down from a society and from what it does and how it feels. But would someone really love their property destroyed? I mean, because these folks, the same people that would actually inflict, vandalism or any type of destruction on everybody else or anybody else's property, would they accept that if it was done to theirs? I mean, because that's how that's my judgment balance, right? I'm looking at it like I wouldn't want to have things broken in my world. So why would I go and destroy somebody's property or whatever? I mean, from graffiti, although graffiti can be artistic and all the stuff, and people use
Yes,
that as an expression, but
yes,
that's one of the positive things that you can see, and some of it is great work, but
yes,
some of it is done just like to spite or to
yes, that's right.
as yeah, it's just the way it is. So I think
That's
that
right.
it's difficult.
That's right. It is. And exactly what you're saying there, Hurricane, is look, I don't want my property destroyed. So I'm
Mm,
not going to destroy other people's property. And I'm going to take you inside the brain as to where that happens. And again, we're going to my favorite part of the brain called the anterior cingulate gyrus, because as soon as you see that if I hurt other people, they can hurt me, you are using empathy. You are using that part of you that feels part of the human society that says, I want to be part of this and I want us all to be able to get on. When somebody becomes destructive and vandalizes property, that part of them, okay, has been hurt, if you like, or impaired, if you like, or something has gone wrong in that part where they think, I'm out just for me and I don't care about other people. And so in this, we go into that area of selfishness, narcissism, and if we go further, we go into psychopathy, all right? And for people like this, we have a certain therapy. We call it wall therapy. We will put them in prison to keep everybody else safe. And that's the best therapy that we can come up with at that stage. But so a lot of the work that I do and we do, Hurricane, is actually making connection with other people. And this is using your anterior cingulate gyrus, that part of your brain that says, I actually belong to the human race. And the more people that feel belonging, the more people that will actually come to the party to have parties and fun rather than destruction and vandalism.
well, thank you, Doc. I mean, that's really, I mean, what we at least that's how you hope that everybody is. But you're right. I think there's a lot of factors that can determine why would someone go there. I mean, ultimately, in previous, I guess, seasons, we've talked about multiple things, including like
Yeah.
upbringing, the circumstances, the environment, and people are just upset. It's a reflection on what they have gone through. They might have anxiety, all these things that can,
Yeah.
become. This is more of like an after effect of their own, I guess, realities, right? And so it's basically how they know better to express. Now ideally, as you said, we'd like to have more empathy and be more part of the game and just be all positive, which in this case, again, as you said, the therapy is not really a happy place when you are behind walls. And if someone understands that, maybe there is, and again, I think part of the question was like, well, it's dangerous because you can get hurt, ultimately you can be in jail, but yet you still do it. It's like almost a thrill for some.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So let's go there. Let's see what causes people to actually make choices that are criminal choices. And look, they have studied Hitler's brain, and like Einstein's brain, they found that it was just an ordinary brain like anybody else's. Okay. So there are choices that get made. Okay. So people who suffer, let's say, trauma in childhood, what will happen is females tend to then become victims of further trauma, whereas males will actually become perpetrators of trauma. And when somebody has been hurt too much, they get this feeling that they want to take revenge on society itself. Now, I do need to let you know that people who have mental illnesses are of no increased risk of carrying out criminal activities, right? The people that are increased risk of carrying out criminal activities are people who engage in substances, alcohol, ice, and all sorts of drugs. And the reason for that is having thoughts of harming other people happens basically to everybody, but we have a frontal lobe that is the source of reason where we go, you know what, I may think that, but I'm not actually going to do it. And what drugs do is impair the frontal lobe so that you go, what, stuff it, I'm going to do this. I'm going to drive this car at this speed. I'm going to go do what I want and hang the consequences. And this is when we end up in the area of criminology. However, there are people who are hell-bent on destruction. And that's why we have a society that includes some sort of a penal system to put limits on these people so that they don't stuff it up for the rest of us. The other thing that I've got to actually say is if our anterior cingulate gyrus, the part of the brain that connects us with other people, doesn't have that connection and exercise that connection, then it becomes impaired. And this is why I actually have a video out against social media, because too much social media means that we cut off from each other. We have to look each other in the eye. We have to speak to each other face to face. We have to feel each other's emotions so that we negotiate each other to know that we are all human beings trying to grapple with this thing called life.
Doctor, is this video available online somewhere that we can share with the folks, or is that...
Yeah, this is on YouTube. This is or you can get it through our website. It basically talks about the story of social media addiction and how, because of the wonderful technology that we have, one of the unintended side effects is that we're starting to be isolated from each other, and we start to forget that we are all human beings through this together. And the antidote to that is giving each other hugs, giving each other smiles, talking to each other, even being in conflict, but doing what we can to resolve that conflict rather than going to areas of vengeance and revenge.
Well, thank you, Doc. Just quickly, folks, you're watching right now on Instagram or YouTube, please join the discussion. Doctor is here live. If you have any questions or interactions, please put them on the comment field or on the Instagram, and I'll place them for Doctor to read and to respond to, or you can call us. And finally, you can also take the actual link and just request to get on the show, just like you would do on a TikTok or somewhere else on Instagram typically. So that being said, thank you, Doc. I mean, that's plenty of time on the vandalism. But I think a lot of these questions that we're going to talk about today, at least, if we get to some of them, they do have to deal with some of this, kind of lumps them up, together in the same topic, level. But so the next one is kind of almost interesting. I'm going to put it up so you can see it, Doc, and I'll read it. So I find myself not caring about the rest of the world. I just want to be me and not subjected to influence and others' expectations. Is it selfishness or self-love? Is this normal? Yvette.
Okay, thank you for the question, Yvette. So the question of self-love, selfishness, and caring about others will again take us into the anterior cingulate gyrus, which is a part of the brain that keeps us connected. But the other thing is there's another part of the brain called the insular cortex, where we monitor how we get on with other people and how we're actually fitting in to our peer group, with the people that we're close to, and even the rest of the world. This is the amazing thing about our society at the moment, Yvette. Never in the history of humankind have we actually known what goes on in the rest of the world, let alone cared about it. If we were living 500 years ago, the whole area of what is happening in continents like Africa, what is happening in continents like Asia, wouldn't be known to us. We would even wonder if these places exist. Now that we know that these places exist and that people live there and they are living lives just like us, it becomes a two-edged sword. It means that on the one hand, oh my gosh, we're not alone, there are other people, that's great, let's share life. On the other hand, it's sort of like, man, this is overload. I barely have enough time to get on with the people next to me rather than people halfway across the world. And okay, so in this, we'll go to the science of altruism. So who do we actually care about? And the science is very clear about this. We will care about our parents, our children, and the people very close to us, just like animals care about their young. It's almost as though the young are an extension of you, which they actually are. And this is called kin altruism. So as an example of this, just over a decade ago, we went through a flood in the town that we were living in, and it was devastating because 20 people died during that flood, and we were all devastated about that. However, on the very same day, over 500 people died also of floods and landslides in Brazil. But we didn't care as much about it. In fact, it took weeks before we even heard about it. And it's an example of how we care about people who are close, but the further away that people get from us, the less caring we actually have. And you know what? It's actually healthy to feel a little bit of guilt about that, because they are actually human beings. And we have a privileged position in our countries because we're doing so well. And part of what we want to do in all of the world is actually increase our technology so that more people can partake of the good life. The more people that have economic progress, safety and security where they live in their environment, the better we believe that we're doing in the world. Okay, so one type of caring. The second type of caring is what we do in economics every day. If I want that car, I have to part with the cash. So somebody gives me something and I give them something. This is what's called reciprocity. I will keep talking with somebody as long as they enjoy it and I enjoy it. We each get something out of it. So in a way, we're kind to each other so that we get on in this world. And that's how all of economics works. And it's wonderful. But there is something above that. It's called empathy altruism. It's when each of us can go just beyond ourselves to actually help somebody else without thought of return. So this is what happens when we give money to charities. This is what happens when we help somebody out on the road. This is what happens when we actually start caring about people that we don't know. And here's the interesting thing, because if we go to the science of survival of the fittest, we kind of go, oh, I don't understand why people would care about somebody that's not themselves, right? However, in society, we decorate heroes. We decorate people who have been in combat, who are firefighters, who are going above and beyond. We love those people, not only for what they can do for ourselves, but it's like an ideal that they embody for us in our society. So Yvette's question also went to self-love, all right? And so let's go there. Where do you then sit in all of this? So in previous episodes, Hurricane, I've talked about how our brain, in a way, works by self-love because we are the center of the whole organization of our universe and how we understand all of life. Mm-hmm. But then something happens that says, I'm only part of something greater. And in that, self-love actually begins to grow when you see that you are part of something greater and that you are a decent enough human being to add to somebody else's life, to give to somebody else's life. Now, if you keep giving and giving and giving and you're not down for that, you're going to withdraw because you've had too much of that. But if you keep taking and taking and taking and not give enough, you're going to start to feel bad about yourself. Then your own self-love goes down. And the remedy for that is actually to get out there, share with people, give somewhere, and then you get this amazing feeling, you know what? I'm not such a bad person. I'm actually part of the human race and I'm actually good. I have what's called intrinsic worth. So that gets very complex, Hurricane, but self-love is only in context of being part of the whole of the human race.
Well, thank you, Doug. Well, so self-love specifically, I mean, everybody, I guess, needs to have some level of that, right? I mean, we do need to take care of this, your personal, because you can't be any good to anyone if you don't do that, right? And, many people sometimes are so caught up with the world, then they follow the influences and everything else
Yes.
that's out there, and you live by everybody else's code but not yours technically, because
Yeah.
it's the keeping up with the Joneses, basically it's the peer pressure. It's like what's the trend,
Yes.
and so
Yeah.
you kind of like almost become somebody that is not you. And so
Yes.
I think a matter of fact, I just did a show about this particular topic, and the author of the book, we've talked about this, and it's the concept
Yeah.
where it's really about you, and you basically care but don't care, meaning that you care about you first, and establish your boundaries. And then you can certainly be participant with everybody else, but you have your own self-control versus being controlled by everything around you. So it
Yeah.
kind of changes dynamics, because in essence you see a lot of people, they can't really function on their own because they're always constantly thinking about what other people are going to think about me and how this
Yeah.
is going to affect everybody else. And so now I love what you said, that we admire heroes and people that go beyond the call of duty and help and do more and even sacrifice life. But that's one concept. But how does that fit in within me personally? I think that's the
Yeah.
question that's very difficult to to balance, because like in a way, and that's I think where the borderline being selfish versus really just caring for yourself. Because if you
Yeah.
don't care about no one, you're basically very selfish. But if you care about yourself first because you can do more, I think that's a positive way of looking at it.
Yeah. Okay. So to expand that whole discussion, I'm actually going to draw upon my experience as a psychotherapist. All right. Now, what I mean by that is it's somebody and me in a room together, talking week after week, getting under the surface and finding out what's really inside. Because a lot of young people in particular hear that, oh, you got to love yourself before you can love other people. And then they look inside themselves and they go, but I know the thought that I have. I know that the feelings that I have. I know I'm not that good a person. Okay, so they feel under pressure to love themselves. And so they get to a point where they start to pretend to love themselves because they feel under pressure for this, okay? And if we're all honest with ourselves, and that's what I love about psychotherapy, it's a place of honesty. We all can have some pretty horrific thoughts, okay? We can be really selfish inside. We can be so about ourselves that we don't respect ourselves. And this is where people get caught up. So how can I actually love myself when, I know myself better than other people do, and I don't like it? So this is where there's a balance between loving yourself and doing it genuinely. So, and this is part of a book that I wrote, The 7 Love Types, and I left the whole idea of self-love to the end because self-love actually comes from an interesting way. It doesn't come from pretending that I'm good. It comes from knowing that you are capable of love. So in other words, if you actually extend yourself and show love to other people, that gives you the evidence that you are actually a loving person. Or another way of saying it, if you do something useful in the world, any job, any volunteer work, any study, and you're part of the human race, it actually shows that you want to be part of it. And that, if you like, is a very selfless act. It's actually saying, I'm not the center of my own world. Now, I know that's a contradiction because I just said that our brains do actually arrange ourselves so that we are the center of our world, but it's in sharing with each other that we get this experience in the anterior cingulate gyrus, that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And then we go, wow, if I actually think that other people are worthwhile and I'm a person, then I must be worthwhile too. So rather than sort of seeing that you've got to love yourself first before you get out there and love other people, it's actually a bit of a circle. It all happens together. As you grow to love other people and see yourself as a person, you get to grow your self-love. And through your self-love, you get that confidence to say, hey, if I'm worthwhile, other people are worthwhile. That means we can all share in this thing called together. And so called togetherness. So I started off with psychotherapy because we're all able to pretend to each other that we are somebody who we're not. And this goes to being fake. And none of us want to be fake. You want it to be genuine. You want it to be heartfelt. You want to go, yeah, this is real. And so when we develop that love for other people, we also develop love for ourselves at the same time.
Well, thank you, Doc. So here's a kick. So I have this theory, and maybe you got to enlighten me today, Doc. As always, so we come to this world alone. I mean, I actually stated this in the previous show, like the one that I just had. I do have this theory that we come in this world alone. We live this world alone, basically. I mean, but to me, I've always looked at it as this is my reality, and and then we connect with your reality and everybody else around you. Everybody's got their own reality, and we all kind of intertwine our realities, and we have kind of roles in this where we meet. I mean, because you meet some people in life and you don't meet them again. Some people briefly, some people for a year, some people for a few minutes, some people for a few years. But at the end, they come in, they go, they come in, and the same thing with you. You get into their lives and you come out of their lives. Some people, it's almost like when someone dies, you don't see them anymore. Well, technically, some people, they come in your life and they disappear from your life. You don't even know where they are anymore. And so it's kind of like you want to love everybody at the same time, but you do kind of love yourself. You want to be in your reality, but you want to, commingle with the realities of the others. It's like this. I mean, a good way to describe it is like meta, right? The world of meta, right? We can all get into this fake, simulation, and we can just interact with each other for a minute and then disappear from each other and unplug. Well, I mean, it's not that far-fetched as an idea. I mean, I even scientifically, maybe there's a way to quantify that. Religiously, we can quantify that as well. So it's very deep, but it's scary to know that, you're in, but you're out, but you have a responsibility. I mean, you and I, we talked about how this show, for example, has a mission to enlighten people and educate people. But, we are trying to do our best in everybody else's reality. Some people buy in, some people don't, some people listen to it, some people love it, but we do our best. But really, I mean, is that exactly what you're talking about, Doctor, in terms of like, you got to love everybody to kind of love yourself, but it's not a love and hate relationship. It's just like, understanding where do you stand in this equation.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So when we talk about everybody, we tend to talk about people in general society, or you're talking about meta, you're talking about people on social media, you're talking about people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. What's more important actually are the people that are close. It is very rare, less than 1% of the population choose to go through life without having a close partner. Now, relationships, most work, some don't, but we all want it. And what happens is when you're close with somebody, let's say if you have a love partner that you've been together with for 10, 20, 30 years, you start to inhabit their reality. The idea that I have my reality and you have your reality, it starts to break down because you start to share a reality. Also, when you talk about children don't actually know what reality is when they come into the world. They actually inhabit their parents' reality and they share their reality. And then, as we spoke about, they start separating from that reality and they start to develop their own reality. But here's the thing. It is very natural for us to share love with another person. And so even if you're in conflict with that other person, when you work out why you're in conflict, and after the argument and you say, now I get you, now I understand what you meant, or now you understand what I meant, right? That feels really good because we're starting to inhabit the same reality. And that's an experience that's very hard to have with people who are over the internet or just out there. So I'll get very personal, Hurricane. After meeting you, there was something about our eye contact, about the way that we smiled and just chatted. And this was not for a long time, but it meant that all of a sudden that person you feel a bit more closeness to, a lot more closeness than before. So in the midst of all of this, it all has to do with sharing love. And I know that love is a word that a lot of people have been hurt by, but call it caring, call it kindness, call it compassion. This feeling that our brains have that we can actually care about each other and inhabit just some of the same reality is what increases caring, kindness, compassion, and love in each other. And this is why self-love grows as you love other people as well.
Well, thank you, Doc. It's amazing. Like, well, by the way, that's there is a reciprocity there, because you're right. I mean, when we met is a different way. Like when you meet someone in person, it's not the same as when you just talk to them on the phone or a distance. It just makes it a whole
Yeah,
different way of connection. And you're right. Obviously, you're on point, yeah, but really, it makes it. I can relate to that, and I think everybody can
yeah,
relate to that because I mean, that's like, I mean, dating, right? It's a very known thing that happens, and people kind of
yeah,
chat and talk. But when you meet someone, that's when you determine whether this is a person you want to even entertain for a second date or more, or it's like the end of the story. Bye bye, good night. I'm not seeing this person again because the connection has been
yeah,
made. So it's very unique. I love what you said, Doctor, about like when you give the example of the flood and how we all are closer to the people that are closer to
yes,
you, and sometimes it's funny because I've seen this happen. Like you know, whether it's in a football concept or sports or at
right,
the work, you become closer to those people. You will defend them even you don't have a relationship with it. You just belong to that tribe. You become like part of that, and you just kind of like stand by them, and
yes,
become part of that culture regardless. You can spend a little or no time and become like literally side up with someone that you just met versus someone that you haven't or you barely know. So it's a weird how it works. I mean, but I guess the brain is just a magnificent uh, you know piece of technology that is beyond our understanding. And by the way, there's something you said that when you have these like for example, the earlier talked about the drinking and the alcohol and all these things
yeah,
as they destroy. I mean, it's really the same concept, like a computer, hard drive that gets corrupted with a virus or something. I mean, those are the
yeah.
viruses that kind of skew up all the functions, and then you don't function properly. But I mean, it is like everything happens here. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And you live in that world. I mean, this is like where you thrive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll talk about the idea of love that we have for a country,
Mm,
because in today's world, people are not sure if it's good or bad. All right, but love for a country, like for example, you're particularly fond of Morocco. All right, I'm particularly fond of Australia. Okay, both of us are fond of the United States. Why? Because we have certain ties to all of those countries that we just mentioned. However, the science in this is that if we become exposed to other people who love other countries, we actually start to care about them and their country. So if we understand that there are some people that like Morocco, some people that like Latvia, some people that like Australia, some people that like the Philippines, whatever you want to go through, and that we all feel this, that it's actually okay. Because in end analysis, all of these countries are a part of being part of the whole world. Now, the thing is that nationalities, as you know, can disintegrate into tribal warfare, right? It's
mm,
okay playing football against each other, just let's not send bombs across to each other, okay? And so the scientific understanding is that our brain is going to love the people close to us, and we can then respect other people that love the people close to them. But when we meet them, which we do on the internet, the whole world does become smaller and like a global village. So there is a possibility that we could actually start to care about each other a whole lot more, so that we actually start working together to make the whole world a better place. And I know that sounds idealistic, Hurricane, but the science says that we could actually do it.
Listen, I'm all for it, baby. That's I want that. I mean, I wish that's actually what we all stand, and it ends a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, some of the questions are going to touch exactly on this topic of conflict and war and all on the crimes and everything. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so thank you, Doc. Will I? Is it okay to move to the next one?
Yeah, yeah,
So
let's
I,
do
I
that.
think I think I think you mentioned something about survivor of the fittest. I think there is one question here that kind of touches on that. Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Uh-oh. Okay, so I think it's two parts of the long question, so I'm just going to go to this one. Oh, doctor, historically we have seen a lot of war and carnage, imperialism, colonialism, slavery. What drives a human to do these acts, accept and justify them? Does this have to do with the survival? I think that's the second part. Instant supremacy, survival of the fittest. I guess you called it. Sorry.
No, no, no. That's all right, because this is related to what we're talking about when we have an us and them mentality. All right. And we're not just going to play football. We actually believe that we're better than everybody else. this is when we get into trouble, right? But when we meet people, okay, so let's take it away from nationality for the moment. Let's take it to people that I work with, people with mental health issues. There's a lot of stigma out there still against people who have schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, anxiety, anorexia, anything. But when you meet these people, when you have a coffee with them, when you sit down and chat with them, you find out that they are a person just like anybody is a person. And when these people are your neighbors and you get to know them more, you go, they're just people. They're just people just like us. And so the science behind all of this is called the mere exposure effect. Just by getting to know somebody who is different to you, you will find out that they're actually not that different, that they are actually people. And we naturally start to see that we are all people. The thing is that when we're in societies that keep ourselves apart from each other, then we start to have ideas that there's something strange about somebody else. And if there's something strange about somebody else, that means we must be superior. Okay? So if we move away from that to sort of see that we are just like anybody else, having that attitude as a basis means maybe we could help each other to get by as much as we can. And that's why in the medical profession, we're looking for cures for schizophrenia. We're looking for cures for bipolar disorder. We're looking for cures for cancer and heart disease, basically to make this world a better place. So does this come up to survival of the fittest? Yes, it does. But the way that we actually survive better is when we see that we survive together. And which is why when we're in a world now that we could destroy each other through war, we could destroy each other by letting the climate go out of kilter. If we actually come together to sort of say, you know what, we're now in a situation where either all going to survive or we're all going to die. So we may as well work together, which is actually what happens a lot, to make sure that we all survive together. And that's the advantage of the mere exposure effect, seeing that we're all in this together.
Well, thank you, Doctor. But this is I think ideology that was introduced to humanity. I mean, through some, I guess, I would say extreme, ideology, because
Yeah.
in essence, I mean, it's more of the animal world that does that. I mean, yeah, you're stronger than you rule, right? You're the lion.
Yes.
You can take care of business, right? But in the
Yes.
human factor, we don't have that. We have a perception that we think because of what we have, possessions, maybe military power, whatever it is, and then we think, oh, maybe some, as you said, you don't understand the others, like the culture or the religion, whatever, and then you start stigmatizing, and basically, just basically labeling people and thinking that they're just less of a breed of human, kind. Yet they're equal to you. They have the same emotions. They have the same, philosophies. They have the same, I guess, learning to live and a happier life and make money and produce, in the society and so on and so forth. I mean, I think that ideology was specific at a certain time, in history, and there's a little bit more of the, I would say, the Darwinism in there as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that like we are just, whoever is better is going to be the one that's going to take over. And so, but you're right. Like when I mean, I'm going to give an example. I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Last Samurai, which was a movie a long time ago with Tom Cruise. And in that story, the Tom Cruise is this soldier of the, an American soldier, in this particular era, and then he gets kidnapped by the samurais, and then he kind of fell in love with their culture and stuff and realized that they're not as bad as we were making them to be. And that story keeps repeating itself in history, in reality, to date. I mean, we almost demonize some groups or some people or whatever it is because of culture, because of the lack of maybe knowledge or technology, and then basically they're just inferior because. But at any given point in history, people were, more advanced than others all the time. There's always people that do more innovative stuff than others. That doesn't make them any better. They just have more knowledge at a certain point of time. And it never lasts anyways, because I mean, where's the Roman Empire, where all these
Yeah.
big empires kind of disappeared over time? Even, you look at the Chinese empires before dynasties. I mean, they were supreme at a certain point, right? The Mongols were supreme, the Ottomans, and so on and so forth. But they eventually it all, and now today with the science that we have and the connection, everybody's got access to the science and so on and so forth. So it's just a race of who's going to have more. But then also that reflects, I think, in our society now, we're like, who has better values or possessions? I drive a much better car. That means I'm better. I can wear a watch that is 60,000. I'm better. I can wear an expensive suit. Then I'm better. You know, I can go to this particular school. Really, all it means that you're able to pay for that because of the
Yeah.
means. That doesn't mean that someone else doesn't have the same intellect. I mean, you know, that's the thing. Like almost it introduces the idea that you're less of an intellect or you're less knowledge. I mean, sometimes literally people can look at your hear your name or something and they assume that, like, let's say we're in the West, right? I mean, I'm in the US. Someone may just hear Hisham or, like, you know, some name, and they automatically kind of like, maybe this guy doesn't even speak English. You know, and
Right.
I've seen that happen where people, or like, you know, they just assume that you're maybe not capable or not able, not educated, and it becomes like a weird thing. Like, what makes you that assumption? But yet it happens. So I think this whole question is going to be always, you know, with us, because as long as we think as humans, as long as we have the ability to gain things from life,
Yeah.
we will feel that we are more, you know, better than the next person that may not have that. Now they may not have it by choice. They just don't want. They don't care about, you know, possessions and worldly things or material stuff. They're content. So that makes a big difference for them. But we don't. So I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
just kind of mumbled a little bit there, but it's kind of weird, you know, to think about it, like how we operate as humans, whereas we're all the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to map out our knowledge bases here a little bit, Hurricane, because we're in very interesting areas, and we're in areas that are up for debate in today's society. Okay.
Mm.
So we mentioned a few things that work according to evolutionary biology, so survival of the fittest, or evolutionary psychology, thinking that I'm better than you. And then we talk about sociology, where there are different ideas and where history repeats itself. And what are we going to do about that? And earlier I mentioned that science would actually like us all to get on well. Now, a pure scientist would say, well, science really doesn't have an opinion on that. Okay, I will disagree with that, because a pure science does not make judgments. It does not make values. It doesn't sort of see what the morality or the values behind anything that happens is. However, we're making value judgments all the time. So I suppose what I'm saying through that is, in this discussion, we're going beyond science and we're going into sociology, but we are still trying to grapple with this idea, Hurricane, and this is what probably underlines all of philosophy. We're still trying to grapple with the idea, how should we live the good life? What is going to make life better? And okay, so we got into that question, are we talking about for ourselves or for everybody? But we are still here, just in our own little studio here, trying to work out what will make life better. So the question becomes, what behaviors are you, Hurricane, going to have, and me and anybody listening, that's going to add value to life? What are the things that we can do with the next person that we meet that's going to make life a little bit better? And what I put to you is, and I'm going to go back to the science of evolutionary biology. It shows that as you go up the chain of life, we actually care about each other more. Two worms do not care about each other as much as two wolves care about each other. And two wolves don't care about each other as much as two chimps care about each other, all right? And two chimps don't care about each other as much as two humans care about each other. However, two chimps can also tear each other apart because of the things that we're talking about. Humans, as history has shown us, definitely have the capability of tearing each other apart. So it comes down to choices. And as I said, the science is moving in the direction that we actually make choices. So when you next meet a human being, I would put to you that the thing that would add value to all of life is if you choose to find common ground, if you choose to get to know them, if you choose to accept and understand rather than divide and conquer.
Well, doctor, so someone can ask. I mean, the question does come up.
Yes.
Why people make the wrong choice? Well, it's not a wrong choice, but why do they make the choice not to want to discover the others, or understand the others, or at least not judge the others? Because I think, as you said, there's a choice, but yet we pick the one that I guess is more feeling good for us, right? No matter what that is, good or bad. And
Yeah.
in the wrong, mind, that choice can be detrimental, destructive, and can cause harm to the others. On the right choice side, someone who picks like love and peace and understanding the others and respecting the other differences. And that's the thing. I mean, as a humans, we have a beautiful thing, which is we are different, yet we are the same. We are
Yeah.
different in our cultures, we're different in languages. I mean, literally, this today I was driving, and I was literally just looking around, and I realized that what the hell, people have hundreds of languages, and they have different beliefs there, and it's just like and we all kind of have the same thing. Everybody has grief, everybody has happiness, everybody wants to have the basic elements of life, and no one
Yeah.
really is waking up like, hey, I don't want to be like everybody else, I want to be different. I think at the end of the day we all want the same things, yet people choose to kind of pick that side, which is not necessarily, again, it's a choice at the end of the day. Like you said, it's the mind, it's whatever they pick. But it's amazing that we have the ability, and I don't know if that's scientific in its own. I mean, I think it's more than just our human nature. That's part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. So you are touching upon human nature. And it's very interesting to me that about 50 years ago, 40 or 50 years ago, one of the big questions in psychology was, if all things are equal, people tend to choose the good thing to do. And the question was, why? Now the question becomes, if all things are equal, people tend to do the selfish thing. And the question is, why? And I think we've actually got an answer to, well, okay, no, I'm going too big, but my theory on that has to do with how the brain works. And the way the brain works is, if you put in the effort first and you get a reward, that feels really good. It's just that in the last 50 years, we have found a lot of ways of getting the reward without putting in the effort. So I'm talking about alcohol, I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about the internet, I'm talking about social media, I'm talking about gaming, I'm talking about being able to access pornography without having to go on a date, right? It all takes less effort and we get the reward. The trouble is, what the science has shown is, if we actually do that, our dopamine levels go down and we actually get more unhappy. So in other words, we have yet to learn that if we find things, put in effort, that's what's going to keep us happy. We actually feel better if we've gone through some pain first, some study, getting out there to ask somebody out on a date, going on a hike before you get the big mountain view. All of these things take effort first. So in other words, pain first, pleasure later. Work first, play later. If you connect pleasure and purpose, that keeps you driving forward and it actually feels better. The trouble is, you have to delay it, right? And we now live in a society where you can get the pleasure first. And it's very difficult to get the human brain to say, no, don't take the pleasure. Let's go for the purpose and the effort first. Then I'll give you the pleasure. And all of our brains, including mine, will say, no, just give me the reward first. So part of that is part of the answer. We've actually got to put in the effort to get on well with each other, because when we do, it feels so good, Hurricane. It really feels good.
Oh, it does. And again, I mean, I can't find another good feeling when you actually do good and just entertain with other people and just be good with them. I mean, I think it's a reward. But I think what you're referring to is appreciation as well, because, I mean, it's a very simple concept. If you work for something, let's say you want to buy a car and you work hard and save money to buy the car, then you value that car. I mean, we're talking about destruction and vandalism. If it's not your stuff, you don't really care. You destroy it, okay, whatever. But if it's yours and you've worked hard of it, you tend to almost love that thing more, and you kind of like what it took to get there, so you have a better understanding and value and appreciation for it. And you said, but if we are just like entitled to everything is easy, we don't care. Like, I mean, talking about like crime and killing and stuff. For example, I think we might have covered this before, but people are watching games most of the time. I think about a year ago, so we talked about some stuff like that, where people
Yeah.
were like doing mass shootings. It's just a game for some of these people. I mean, literally, it looks to them, they get into one of those consoles and they're shooting at targets now, and they take that to the real world. To them, is exactly the same. They don't even know if there is that those are real lives that you and families and you're destroying. So it changes the dynamics. But if you understand what you're doing and you get a feel for like every step of the way to get there, like it's even
Yeah.
a relationship. I mean, the dating is probably the one example everybody knows. you know,
Yeah.
it when you do a lot of the work, you appreciate that actually time, with that person, as opposed to like you don't even have the satisfaction with that person because it's like, okay, it's in and out, whatever, and it's just that way. But it's different when you actually do things with your mind and actually with the selection, and you put the work. I mean, listen, I mean, every time I listen to your doctor, like, just like valves just keep going.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one analogy that I want to give you, and I'd like to say that there was a study on this, but I don't remember if there actually was. But there are some people who like climbing mountains. Now,
Mm.
I want to give you the example of one person who prepares for months, who makes themselves fit, who saves up to buy the cabinets and the ropes and everything. And then one day they go together with a group of friends and they climb the top of a mountain, and then they look out over the world from the top of this mountain. Now, there are other people who have got a lot of money, and all that they need to do is hire somebody with a helicopter to take me to the top of that mountain. And they go to the top of the same mountain and they see the same view. And the people who have been working for months and putting their blood and sweat into it, they experience more joy. They experience more of a sense of achievement because it's in relationship to the effort that they have put in. So they appreciate it more and they see it as a life event. And so I wanted to put it to people out there that that's how life works. If you're in a relationship that takes effort, that's good because the payoff is good, right? If you have sweated to get through exams and you finally pass, that's good. It's far better than buying the answers and just getting the diploma without it, okay? If you feel that you've made a difference in somebody's life and it's taken you a lot of work to do that, that's good. The payoff is much higher than if you didn't bother in the first place. It's always, and the science of what's happening in the brain chemicals is moving in this direction to know that all of life is actually a lot more complex than we think. It's not just that we feel good with dopamine, but we feel good after we've put in effort and then get some sort of a reward. Life is only worthwhile if you actually live it, and not from a bedroom and a console, but actually get out there and do the hard yards.
Well, it's I'm listening to you, but the world that we live in today is changing,
Yes,
right? Now with
yes,
AI, and I think we covered AI. You had ChatGPT against you for for a session one time last year, and
yeah,
we talk about, for example, the meta world, right? And
yeah,
I love that you've covered a lot of stuff about the way we live today, the social in the last 50 years, and I think even you shared about studies about the since the invention of the iPhones and things, people have changed. But this
yeah,
whole thing, to your point, is going to keep changing, probably to the worst, because what I'm seeing is that people are getting, unfortunately, I would say, lazier because everything is easier to
yeah,
access. You don't have to work hard. I mean, even food, you don't have to go, and you can just, hey, get this for me and drop it to the door. I mean, you don't even have any connection with that particular thing. You didn't sweat to go
yeah,
there. You can earn money sitting on your desk at home and don't even leave. So I think we're losing those pleasures that we typically had. I mean, you worked hard
yeah,
during the day. I mean, a farmer, right? You got to get up early. You got to work all day, and you got to wait for months before you get to see the results of your hard work. But then when you see
yeah,
those trees and you see those fruits, wow! I mean, a good example. I mean, I've always used the martial arts concept, but in order for you to get a belt, a
yeah,
rank, you gotta put a lot of work and effort, and when you get that, it's
yeah,
like, whoa, yeah. I mean, you're not gonna get a belt unless you earn it, right? So it kind
right,
of works that same way. It's a lot of work that gets there, and then you look forward to the next one. Now, if imagine everybody just gets hair, take a belt, you're cool like that. I mean, you'll look cool, but you're not going to have any of the satisfaction and knowledge or the actual understanding what it took to get to that point. And I think that's
Yeah,
actually what we're experiencing. And listen, I have this discussion with my kids all the time.
yeah,
They have things because they happen to have things. I
yeah,
mean, I didn't have the same things, for example, that they had the same way they had it. It's my fault in a way, and I blame myself sometimes, like, because you kind of spoil your kids to a degree because you feel that you want to give them more. And I think that's all parents, what they do, they want to give more and have them experience a little bit more than what they've experienced. But in a way, it's you hurting them. And I at a certain point I realized that, no, you gotta take some stuff away. You got to have to earn,
yeah,
their
yeah,
ability to get some things. And you want to get this, well, you got to work towards it. You got to earn some points and get a score to actually get XYZ. So but it takes time, and you have to adjust that. But I think in today's modern world, and I think even across the globe now, it doesn't matter what country you probably can name. I think this is happening today. Everybody, I mean, everybody's got an iPhone. I mean, these iPhones are like $1,000 plus, dollars. I mean, it's not cheap.
yeah,
Some
yeah.
$1,000 in some parts of the world, it's like $10,000 in
It's a
terms of
lot of money.
income. It's a lot of money. Yet everybody has them. How, I have no
Yeah,
idea. But it's weird that it's happening, at this rate, because again, we talk peer pressure. It is the right thing to do, and everybody's almost copying everybody, but there is no real flavor about how it's happening. You don't really get to enjoy things when it's just handed to you. I mean,
yeah,
like you said, people actually cheat. They don't get any satisfaction and they don't retain anything, anyways. So
yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of like you can't do that in life.
yeah, yeah. So you talked about laziness, and unfortunately, so never in human history have we had a situation where we're all sort of glued to a screen, or we can take entertainment with us in a little phone, right? And the thing about the brain is it is actually lazy. But I'm going to give people a way of using their laziness to their advantage, right? So the example that I use is we started to break horses and ride horses because we were too lazy to walk, right? Then we put carts on horses because we were too lazy to carry all the stuff that we wanted to take on our horse. Then eventually we invented a combustion engine because horses weren't fast enough for us. And since that time, we have invented faster cars because we're too lazy to walk and we want to get somewhere else quicker. And now we all use jet planes because they're faster, and we're too lazy to walk, let's say from Australia to the USA, because it would just take too long. So laziness can actually drive creativity and invention in us as a species. So when you are lazy, and this is what I do when I'm lazy, I go, what am I lazy about? What is it that I actually want more conveniently? And how can I use that to drive a value and then a goal that I have so I can do something worthwhile in this life? And if your laziness is, look, I want to invent something like a remote control so I don't have to travel 3 meters to a television or a screen, then be the person who actually takes the remote control, invent it and market it, or get together with other people so that you drive our whole society towards the good. Because computers, AI, robot technology, all these things that we are having, they're just technology. Hurricane, they could be absolutely wonderful, or as they could be, as you said, an absolute disaster. But I believe what they're going to do is make us confront how our brain works, how our mind works, what our values are, and can I take charge of all the stuff that's inside my skull to do something worthwhile in life today. That's a hard responsibility, Hurricane. Hard responsibility.
It is, and but we all have that responsibility, right? I mean, we
Yes,
all owe it
yes,
to the world, to ourselves. And again, the I love. I mean, this particular show itself, is a unique show because we talk about some stuff that most people may not have the ability to hear about on a regular basis.
yeah,
And the advice that you give and the analogies, I mean, they're pretty easy to understand once you hear them. You know, it's simple yet it's complex because we're not exposed
Yes,
to it on a regular basis. But once you
yeah,
hear, it's like, okay, you know, it makes sense. You know, I think we have a better way. The way you present it, the way you break it down, it's just like, oh, wow, here, just like aha moment, right? And it happens, and you know, but it's amazing that we have the ability, we have the resources, we have all these things. We just don't analyze. People are not going in. I know you and I, we had a joke last month about analyzing me, but you know, people don't analyze things, right? You know, they just don't question things. They don't ask questions. You know, they just go with the flow, and you know, it's all cool
yeah,
because it's easier. You know, and when you start like putting the questions and questioning things and wondering and pondering and you know, it just like too much for the brain. I mean, it's like, oh, it's
yes,
too heavy. But you're right. It's like the Matrix. Having that red pill means now you know, and now you
yeah.
have the responsibility to
Okay.
act on it.
Yes. Okay. So what happens is people will then sit in front of the screen, or they'll listen to people like us, and they'll go, "Oh, this is all too much. I cannot solve the problem of the matrix. I can't solve the problem of all the world's wars and famines. I don't know what to do." So in that context, I encourage people to do only one thing: know what your values are, right? And to know what your values are, and we've talked about this, I've got 5 questions to help people find their values, but it may take a whole weekend, it may take a whole 3 days to go, this is what I value in life. Because first you have to know what you value in life, and you use that then to drive your goals to go after what you value in life. And Hurricane, we tend to value the same things. We actually value friendships, love, close relationships, some self-expression, a sense of belonging. And these are things that we value. But then the question is, how can I then use that to actually drive my life forward to do it? Because if I sit in my living room um, trying to solve the questions of where I fit in society, I cannot fix society, but I can do something about myself. I can do something about my next interaction with another human being. And that can make a difference for that human being, to go to someone, other human being. And all of a sudden you've got a whole group of human beings looking at their values and saying, well, if we actually appreciate friendship and value friendship, let's be friends. Then comes the hard work.
Well, again, there's nothing without hard work. I mean, you know, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
things that, but it's just the way it is. It's supposed to be that way. And I always say, like, there's nothing good that comes easy. I mean, it's really, and all the great things in life, they require work. I mean, nothing is that simple. I mean, even the human being takes 9 months to be actually conceived and delivered to this
yeah,
world. So you
yeah.
know, it's that kind of thing, right? Well, listen, doctor, I think we've exceeded the time. And, you know, as always, you know, I've gotten enlightened myself, and, you know, hopefully we've delivered some of the good stuff to our audiences, and maybe we can make a difference again, one person at a time and one show at a time. As always, doctor, thank you so much for joining us, for taking the time. I mean, I know your time is very valuable, and you're doing great things out there. And so, yeah, that's it, folks. You know, we're coming to the end of the show. Anything, doctor, to close with, you know, today's episode?
Look, Hurricane, just thank you for putting this together so that we actually talk about all these things. And what we do is something of value, and I would encourage people to know their values so that they can move forward in their life with their goals and values.
All right. Well, that's it, folks. It's a wrap for January. We'll catch up on. Oh, it's a leap year. We got 29 days. So, how about that? You know, next month is going to be a longer February. All right, we got an interesting year this year. So I'm not sure when our next. You know, it's the last Friday of the month. So I got to look up at the calendar. I haven't looked, but you know, please tune in. You know, on that day and join the discussion. Send in your questions, and you can always participate in a call. And you know what? Guys, don't be shy. Please join the discussion. It is, you don't, not every day you get a professional, an expert in this world to actually answer questions. And you have this ability, you have this opportunity, take advantage of it one way or the other. That being said, I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon, with a new show, and we'll catch up on the next one, folks. Bye for now.